All right. Good morning, Nicholas. Welcome to Zoop. We're really excited to have you here today. How are you doing?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
Pretty good. So before we get started, I just wanted to let you know this interview is an opportunity for us to get to know a little bit more about you and for you to learn more about the position in our company. So we'll be asking you a series of questions to assess your skills, experience, and fit for the role. Also, we encourage you to ask any questions that you might have along the way. So are you ready to begin?
I am ready, yes.
All right, sounds good. So let's begin with some questions about your background and experience. Could you walk us through some of your relevant experience and how it aligns with this position?
Sure. I've been a shift manager at Core Life Eatery just up the street from Zoop for just under 2 years. So I was the next in line after the general manager just because of my experience and being there so long. So when the general manager was gone, I effectively took the position of general manager acting while my manager was on vacation or on leave or whatnot. So just because of my experience doing that, I know how to run a restaurant as a general manager from my experience doing that. Zoop is also very similar in style to Core Life Eatery, so I believe with that kind of background, I could easily implement that knowledge into running Zoop as a general manager.
Okay, yeah, thanks for sharing that. It's good to hear about your experience and now let's do some more situational questions to assess your problem solving and decision making abilities.
Sure.
Um So, can you provide an example of a challenging situation that you faced in a previous role and how you resolved it?
Definitely. So I would say that the biggest thing that pops out to me when I talk about these types of experiences is when I was the acting general manager for 2 weeks while my actual general manager was on vacation. So I turned to the role of acting general manager. That was definitely very challenging. It was a whole lot of work for me to do. I wasn't fully ready at the moment, but as you go on day by day, I felt more comfortable with taking on this position. I mean, there was a lot that I had to do in terms of inventory, staff scheduling, just maintaining all the team and making sure that everybody is aligned with each other. So that was definitely challenging. I mean, especially with the day-to-day operations of a restaurant, there's always going to be a challenging customer situation that you'll have to deal with. But all in all, I feel that I handled everything relatively well. Definitely a learning experience for me, but like I said, I'm able to implement that knowledge from when I was the acting general manager onto a new position where I could be the full-time general manager.
For sure, yeah. So, would you say you're more of like a go with the flow kind of guy then? Or,
I would say there's aspects of that. It really just depends on the situation. In that type of situation, I would say kind of go with the flow, but also like to kind of have a schedule to lean off of, or not really schedule, but just general set of ideas of what I need to do to lean off of. But I do like to go with the flow a bit in terms of every day is a new day in a restaurant, and there's always a new situation or challenge that you might have to deal with, which you might not have had experience with before, but you just have to adjust to the situation and approach the situation the best that you can.
for sure, for sure. So, obviously, as you know, collaboration is crucial in any team environment. So, I would say, could you provide an example of a time when you successfully motivated and led a team to achieve a specific goal or improve performance?
Mhm. So that reminds me of one time we had a contest at Core Life Eatery of whichever night was able to have the most sales, that all that those team members would get a small bonus. So using that example, I was leading the restaurant to be able to upsell as much as they can, be able to sell as much as they can, just with that kind of goal that if we are successful with this night, then we all kind of get a reward in the end. So I would say that that definitely was useful into kind of leading a team to be able to do something that otherwise they might have not done. And it's just with my own persistence of getting the whole team on board with this type of idea. I feel like that type of situation definitely was able to guide me towards success in that type of situation.
For sure, for sure. Um, so as you know, as a restaurant manager, you're gonna have to be managing money and like possibly even a tight budget.
Mhm.
So, but also not losing any quality. So, did you share an experience where you had to manage a tight budget while maintaining high standards still of customer
Definitely.
service?
Definitely. So this actually reminds me of a kind of I would say situation with regards to our portion sizes. So at Core Life Eatery, we would portion all of our chicken or a steak that would be added to onto a salad bowl or onto a wrap. We would portion that out to 1.5 ounces. But of course, there's variances within that. If you go over that too much at the end of the night, you realize you're missing 10 pounds of steak, 15 pounds of chicken, and that obviously leads up to a hefty kind of cost when you put that all together. So as my job as shift manager on a day-to-day basis, I was responsible for making sure that all our portions were the exact 1.5 ounces. If not, then they were slightly under portioned to ensure that the variances would kind of even out in the end. So that was very important to my position to ensure that the budget um, wouldn't be out of line, just to make sure that we were not overspending on food products and making sure that we weren't over portioning things. So I was always making sure that we were using a set portion. When we use this chicken scoop that was supposed to be a level scoop was equal to 1.5 ounces on the dot. So making sure that chicken scoops weren't over portioned, that they were perfectly level to ensure that at the end of the night when I'm doing my books and my bookkeeping, to making sure that everything was portioned correctly and that there wouldn't be any variances that would affect us negatively at the end of the night.
Sure, for sure. So, a couple more questions. Just moving along. So, do you share an experience, possibly about core life or another job you've had where you've had to make a difficult decision that affected the operation or reputation of the restaurant?
Sure. Um, I would say that that type of situation would be most in terms of when I had to let some staff go due to negative performance. It wouldn't negatively affect the reputation of the restaurant, but it might negatively affect the reputation of us as an employer just because we were kind of strict on who what we were able to keep on the team just because of performance measures. So there was a situation where I was involved with the decision to let some staff go with my general manager based off performance on day-to-day type operations, just the type of people who weren't arriving on time or just showing up really late or not even just not showing up. People who have consistently reprimanded before about incorrect portions or improper customer service. So we kind of had to go about that and kind of restaff the restaurant a bit just to ensure that we were maintaining company standards and operations correctly. So that was probably the biggest kind of challenge I faced in those terms.
Okay, that definitely sounds challenging. So, um, talking more about like menus in the restaurant and recipes, could you share an example of a time when maybe you've had to change a menu or a recipe or a procedure maybe because of like a customer's preference or market trends?
Sure. So I actually would relate this most to our online ordering method. So with regards to our online ordering methods, if a customer wanted to have their salad tossed, you would see it on the ticket, it would say dressing toss. However, in my experiences, I discovered that this actually was not a well thought out plan because the salad by the time it would get delivered or picked up by the customer would be kind of all mushy and not as fresh anymore. So I decided to implement the strategy in which we would only put the dressings and sauces on the side rather than mix them into the salad because it would uphold the quality of the product better when it reached the customer. Even though they might have asked for the dressing toss, just knowing with my own personal experience, by the time it would reach them, the product wouldn't be as fresh and chances are that they would want to return it and get a new remake or a refund. So for business operations as well, in terms of budgeting and in shrink levels, it was best to kind of implement that strategy where we might not have to listen to the customer based off the ticket, but in the end, it's only to improve the experience of the customer and improve the product that we were serving.
Okay, that sounds good. So as a manager, also you're gonna have to be dealing with customers that might not be happy with their food. So you kind of alluded to it earlier, but could you describe a situation where you had to handle a customer complaint? How did you address the issue, and then what was the outcome?
hmm So I remember there was this one customer, she ordered about three bowls take home to her family. She picked them up. She called in saying that pretty much everything was missing ingredients or made incorrectly. She was pretty upset about that. She wanted to get a refund. I initially offered if she would come in, we would make the new bowls correctly. I would make them myself as managers to ensure that everything was properly made and prepared. I was also going to throw in a few extra freebies for her just for her troubles. So just going about that correctly, making sure that the product is served correctly. As a manager, people see customers would see you in a more positive light if I'm willing to fix this mistake completely by myself and ensure that it's completely made correctly because I made it from step A to step Z. She was pretty happy about that, and she was able to later return and be a frequent customer of ours from just me correcting her mistake and apologizing and knowing just how to kind of navigate that difficult customer situation.
That's really good to hear. So, um, have you ever had to handle a crisis or an emergency in the restaurant, like a power outage maybe, or like a food safety issue?
Uh-huh. So that actually reminds me the most of when our oven stopped working one night, and most of our foods were made in the oven. So going through that, if we didn't have an oven to cook anything, we were by default out of many of our products. We couldn't serve them. There were a few other strategies that we were able to use to kind of make stuff. So we had a sham, which is a kind of like a holder for heat. So you would set that to about 175 degrees. An oven would actually cook at, 350, 400. But there were other strategies that I was able to implement that night when possible to make sure that we were able to maybe make stuff in the sham. We would have to cook it longer, obviously, to make sure that everything was fully up to temperature. There was always a different kind of method that we could use with that. I mean, there was still some products that we weren't able to serve, and it created a lot of chaos because things had to cook for twice as long. We can't get them out as fast. People are ordering them. They're coming through on the online orders. We're not able to just tell someone that we don't have that product if it's coming in through an online order rather than if they were in store. So there were a lot of challenges that night, but I feel that I was able to lead that situation appropriately and effectively.
Right. That sounds good. Um, okay, so last question would be just tell me about a time when you possibly like built a relationship with a vendor or a supplier or like a local community organization to enhance the restaurant's reputation and support the goals of the business.
hmm So we actually had a fundraiser with a local elementary school that would happen, I want to say every month or so. So in that fundraiser, we would donate about 25% of our proceeds, excuse me, from that night to the local elementary school. So I believe that that would enhance reputation locally just because people are seeing that we're willing to do that type of event where we donate the proceeds, which would help their children, but also it benefited the restaurant because we would boost our sales because we would drive more foot traffic inside. So it was really a win-win situation for not only the restaurant, but also the community involved.
Right, for sure. So, lastly, do you have any questions about the position or about our company?
So I would say my first question would be, Is there any type of room for upward growth? Is there any type of opportunities where a general manager can move on to, let's say, like a director type of role, or even more of a corporate and office type of role? Is there any type of knowledge that you would be able to tell me on that?
Yeah, definitely. So a lot of our corporate people have started out as managers and then they've moved on to their jobs now. It's just a matter of time, like on the job and experience.
Definitely, definitely. Okay. And then I was also wondering if you could tell me, is there like any type of are you able to take like vacation time off? Is that something that's offered, like paid time off?
Yeah, so we offer our employees 2 weeks of paid vacation every year. So you can take the time off and you'll still be getting paid.
Okay, awesome. I think that wraps it up for my questions. Is there anything else you're wondering from me?
Um, that should be all. Yeah, thank you for your questions. We appreciate your thorough preparation.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Yep, you too. Goodbye.